Childhood and Adolescence, Voyages and Development by Spencer A Rathus, Chapter 1, Section 1. Truth or Fiction. During the Middle Ages in Europe, children were often treated as miniature adults. Page 6. Children have come into the world as blank slates without inborn differences in intelligence and abilities. Page 6. Nail-biting and smoking cigarettes are a sign of conflict experienced during early childhood. Page 9. Children should not be punished. Page 16. Research with monkeys has helped psychologists understand the formation of attachment in humans. Page 38. To learn how people develop over a lifetime, researchers have tracked some individuals for more than 50 years. Page 39. This book has a story to tell, an important story, a remarkable story. It is your story. It is about the remarkable journey you have already taken through childhood. It is about the unfolding of your life today. Billions have made this journey before. You have much in common with them. You are unique, and things will happen to you and because of you that you have never experienced before. Development of children is what this book is about. It is, in a very real sense, we cannot hope to understand ourselves as adults. We cannot catch a glimpse of the journeys we have taken to arrive at this point in our lives without understanding children. In this chapter, we explore some of the reasons for studying development. We take a brief tour of the history of child development. It may surprise you that until relatively recently times, people were not particularly sensitive to the ways in which children differ from adults. Next, we examine some controversies in child development, such as whether there are distinct stages of development. We see how theories help illuminate our observations and how theories help point the way towards new observations. Then we consider methods for the study of child development. Scientists have devised sophisticated methods for studying children, and the field of ethics helps us determine what types of research are deemed proper and what types are deemed improper. Section 1.1. What is child development? And coming to terms with terms. You have heard the word child all your life, so why bother to define it? We do so because words in common usage are frequently used inexactly. A child is a person experiencing the period of development from infancy to puberty. Two other familiar words that are frequently used inexactly. The term infancy derives from the Latin roots meaning not speaking, and infancy is usually defined as the first 2 years of life, or the period of life before the development of complex speech. We stress the word complex because many children have a larger vocabulary and use simple sentences before their second birthday. Researchers commonly speak of two other periods of development that lie between infancy and adolescence: early childhood, middle childhood. Early childhood encompasses the age from 2 to 5 years. Middle childhood generally is defined as the years from 6 to 12. In Western society, the beginning of this period usually is marked by the child's entry into first grade. To study development, we must also look further back to the origins of sperm and ova, the process of conception and the prenatal period. Yet we must also describe the mechanisms of heredity that give rise to traits in humans and other animals. Development is the orderly appearance, over time, of physical structures, psychological traits, behaviors, and ways of adapting to the demands of life. The changes brought on by development are both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative changes are changes in type of kind. Consider motor development. As we develop, we gain the abilities to lift our heads, sit up, crawl, stand, and walk. These changes are qualitative. However, with each of these qualitative changes are quantitative developments, or changes in amount. After babies begin to lift their heads, they lift them higher and higher. Soon after children walk, they begin to run. Then they gain the capacity to run faster. Development occurs across many dimensions: biological, cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral. Development is spurred by internal factors such as genetics, and it is shaped by external factors such as nutrition and culture. The terms growth and development are not synonymous, although many people use them interchangeably. Growth is generally used to refer to changes in size or quantity, whereas development also refers to changes in quality. During the early days following conception, the fertilized egg develops rapidly. It divides repeatedly, and the cells begin to take on specialized forms. However, it does not grow in that there is no gain in mass. Why? It has not yet become implanted in the uterus and is therefore without any external source of nourishment. Language development is the process by which the child's use of language becomes progressively more sophisticated and complex. Vocabulary growth, by contrast, consists of the accumulation of new words and their meanings. Child development, then, is a field of study that tries to understand the processes that govern the appearance and growth of children's biological structures, psychological traits, behavior, and understanding, and ways of adapting to the demands of life. Professionals from many fields are interested in child development. This includes psychologists, educators, anthropologists, sociologists, nurses, and medical researchers. Each brings his or her own brand of expertise to the quest for knowledge. Intellectual cross-fertilization enhances the skills of research in the field and enriches the lives of children. Why do researchers study child development? An important motive for studying child development is curiosity, the desire to learn about children. Curiosity may be driven by the desire to answer questions about development that remain unresolved. It may also be driven by the desire to have fun. Yes, children and the study of children can be fun. There are other motives as well. To gain insight into the nature of human nature, for centuries, philosophers, scientists, and educators have argued over whether children are aggressive or loving, whether children are conscious and self-aware, whether they have natural curiosity that demands to unravel the mysteries of the universe, or whether they merely react mechanically to environmental stimulations. The quest for answers has an impact on the lives of children, parents, educators, and others who interact with children. To gain insight on the origins of adult behavior. How do we explain the origins of empathy in adults, or of antisocial behavior? How do we explain the development of so-called feminine and masculine patterns of behavior? If these patterns of behavior actually exist, do they represent the natural unfolding of genetic imperatives, social expectations, or both? And how do we explain the origin of special talents in writing, music, athletics, and math? To gain insights into the origins of sex differences and gender roles, and into the effects of culture on development. How do gender roles, that is, culturally introduced expectations for stereotypical feminine and masculine behavior, develop? And are there sex or gender differences in cognitive and behavior? If so, how do they develop? To gain insight into the origins, prevention, and treatment of developmental problems. Fetal alcohol syndrome, PKU, see Chapter 2. SIDS, see Chapter 5. Down syndrome, autism, hyperactivity, dyslexia, child abuse. These are but a few of the buzzwords and terms that strike fear into parents and parents-to-be. A major focus in child development research is the search for the causes of such problems, so that they can be prevented or treated. To optimize conditions of development. Most parents want to be the source of nutrition and medical care for their children so that they will develop strong and healthy bodies. Parents want their infants to feel secure with them. They want to ensure their major transitions, such as the transition from home to school, will be as stress-free as possible. Researchers therefore strive to learn about issues such as the effect of various foods and chemicals on the development of the embryo, the effect of parent-infant interaction immediately following birth on the bonds of attraction with children, the effects of bottle feeding versus breastfeeding on mother-infant attachment and the baby's health, the effect of daycare programs on parent-child bonds of attachment and on children's social intellectual development, the effect of various patterns of child rearing on the development of independence, competence, and social adjustment. What views of children do we find throughout history? In ancient times and in the Middle Ages, children were often viewed as innately evil and discipline was harsh. Legally, medieval children in Europe were treated as property and servants. They could be sent to the monasteries, married without consent, or convicted of crimes. Children were nurtured until they were 7 years old, which was considered the age of reason. Then they were expected to work alongside adults in the home and in the field. They ate, drank, and dressed as miniature adults. Truth or fiction revisited. Is it true that children were treated as miniature adults throughout most of the Middle Ages? For example, much of the Middle Ages, artists depicted children as small adults. However, this meant only that more was expected of them, not that they were given more privileges. The transition to the study of development in modern times is marked by the thinking of philosophers such as John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the Englishman John Locke in 1632 to 1704, believed that children came into the world as tabula rasa, a blank tablet or clean slate, that was written on by experience. Locke did not believe that inborn predispositions towards good or evil played an important role in the conduct of the child. Instead, he focused on the role of the environment or of experience. Locke believed that social approval and disapproval are powerful shapers of behavior. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 1712 to 1778, a Swiss-French philosopher, reversed Locke's stance. Rousseau argued that children are inherently good, and that if allowed to express their natural impulses, they will develop into generous and moral individuals. Truth or fiction revisited. John Locke believed that children come into the world as blank tablets without inborn differences in intelligence and talents. However, as we will see, there is research evidence that inborn factors, once heredity, play a role in the development of intelligence and personality traits. During the Industrial Revolution, there was greater awareness of childhood as a special time in life. Still, children often labored in factories from dusk to dawn through the early years of the 20th century. In the 20th century, in the United States and many other developed nations, laws were passed to protect children from strenuous labor, or to require that they attend school until a certain age, and to prevent them from getting married or being sexually exploited. But these safeguards are by no means universal. Nevertheless, in the United States, where children were once considered the property of parents who could do with them as they wished, laws now protect children from the abuse and neglect of parents and other caretakers. Juvenile courts see that children who break the law receive fair and appropriate treatment in the criminal justice system. Pioneers in the development of child development studies. Various thoughts about child development coalesced into a field of scientific study in the 19th and 20th centuries. Many individuals, including Charles Darwin, G. Stanley Hall, Alfred Binet, contributed to the emerging field. The Englishman Charles Darwin, who lived from 1809 to 1882, is best known as the originator of the theory of evolution, but he was also one of the first observers to keep a baby biography, in which he described his infant son behavior in great detail. The American G. Stanley Hall, who lived from 1844 to 1924, is credited with founding child development as an academic discipline. He adapted the questionnaire method for use with large groups of children, so that he could study the contents of children's minds. The Frenchman, Alfred Binet, along with Theodore Simon, developed the first standardized intelligence test near the turn of the 20th century. The purpose of Binet's test was to identify public school children who were at risk of falling behind their peers in academic achievement. By the beginning of the 20th century, child development had emerged as a scientific field of study. Within a short time, major theoretical views of the developing child had begun to emerge, proposed by such scientists as Arnold Gesell, Sigmund Freud, John B. Watson, and Jean Piaget. We next describe their theories of child development, as well as those from other theorists.